Hello, and welcome to Unity Church on the Mountain from my home. I invite you at this time just to take a deep breath, gently and fully filling your lungs, and release. And maybe one more deep breath, bringing our awareness to this present moment and allowing it to release. In this now moment, present to our being, let us affirm together our opening statement. There is only one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God. The title of the talk today is Why Are We Here Right Now? Why are we here right now in this day and age? I'd like to begin by reading for you a passage from the Old Testament. I'm reading from the Lamsa translation from the ancient Near Eastern scriptures, the Peshitta. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, which translates as the preacher. And I'll be reading from chapter 3, and it's so poetic, I have to read it to completion, so it's verses 1 through 8. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under the sun. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to lose and a time to seek. A time to tie up and a time to untie. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. A time for war and a time for peace. Our true self, the divine in us, that which was, let's leave the past tense off, that which has been becoming in all time, that in us chose to be here in this relative realm, occupying our current bodies right now. I can remember as a youngster several times in my life where I would be reading a book about a different time period, and I would dream of myself living in that time. I can remember wanting to be Robin Hood and his merry men, maybe one in the band, or maybe Robin Hood himself. I can remember dreaming about the Knights of the Round Table and thinking of myself as one of the knights on the Round Table, even drawing up coats of arms for myself and remembering that time period. At other times, I was researching the mountain men in around the ends of the 1830s into the 1840s, who were exploring the West in the United States, trapping beaver and getting to know the Indians and living by themselves for months, perhaps even years, gathering the pelts to bring to rendezvous. But those are not my times. My time is now. I was born into this time for a reason. You can go back a couple of episodes of these talks and you can read about the meaning of life. You can read about what happens when we die. And all of these come to bear on the talk today. You see, even if I'm not aware of what that purpose is, if my conscious mind does not know, that does not leave aside the purpose, the meaning of life, the meaning of why I am born right now at this time. All of this talk of time reminds me of a joke, and I'd like to share that with you now. So I was at work the other day, and I asked my boss for some time off. And he said, yes, as long as you make up the time. And I responded, it's 20 minutes after 14. Okay. But why are we born right now in this time? So much is happening in this time that may turn my stomach. When I choose to look and see it, I can see plenty of good that's happening in this time. The love and compassion we feel for each other as human beings. But if I'm not careful, I can be overcome by the news and by what I see around me. And sometimes those things aren't so nice. In fact, the news, I think, reinforces the things that aren't nice, just to make sure that they sell ad time. But we can't ignore what's going on around us. We can look on the news and we can see examples of men and women who have been killed or injured as a result of the color of their skin. No other reason has these events happened to them than because they were different than those who were in power in that situation. Fear coming up. Cultural conditioning. Another example would be people who have been similarly harassed or abused because of their gender or their gender identity. Again, fears coming up. Cultural bias. If you'd like a way to explore this, I'm going to recommend a book. It's called The Cast. I believe it's listed in the subtitle as being part of the Oprah Winfrey Book Club. If you're looking for something that's easy, breezy, and light and fun, don't pick up this book. It's too true to be light and fun. But I believe that we are not going to heal until we can recognize the shadow not only within our personal self, but that is in our widespread culture. These patterns that are there for centuries. So why are we born into this particular time? There is something that is ours to do. Spirit is tugging at us. As expressions of the divine in this relative realm, we are born into these bodies right now because we have some gift, some perspective on the situation that is ours to share. It may influence one or two people, and it may influence the entire world. It may influence people we're not even aware of. Remember the energy, when we hold the presence, the energy of our words, the energy of our thoughts, radiates from us out into the universe and touches people. It touches situations, and we don't always know their effects. So why are we born into this world right now instead of some other? Because we are uniquely prepared for this time. You know, when I think about being a mountain man out there and in the very extreme temperatures of heat and cold, and then I think about the comfort that I feel with air conditioning in my house. It's not so hard to be in this day and age where we have doctors who don't just cut you open and let you bleed or put leeches on you. There are a lot of things in this day and age that we can be grateful for. We can be grateful for not living in the Middle Ages in the time of King Arthur, because in that time very few of us would actually be knights in the Round Table, and very many of us would be abjectly poor, barely able to make a living for ourselves and our family, tilling the land for another person. We are born into this day and into this age for a unique purpose. It is ours to discover that. There's no way that I can possibly tell you what your purpose is. But there is one inside of us who knows. In our heart, when we spend our time in the silence, whether it is specified quiet time, spirit breaks throughout the day, or just our walk, our exercise time, our time that we can spend at a street light, bringing ourselves to the quiet, taking a deep breath when we're in the middle of something that isn't so peaceful, and finding that peace. It is in these times of peace, in the silence, as our minds cease their racing thoughts, jumping from here to there, that we can find our guidance of what is ours to do. As we practice spending this time in the quiet, we begin to notice a difference between our thoughts as they race through our mind and seem to come from the outside, versus thoughts that are coming from our heart, that are coming from the center of our being. This difference, as we pray, as we meditate regularly, begins to be noticed. We can begin to tell a difference in the quality, in the vibration of these types of thoughts. When I feel this guidance coming from within, it has never been in words. It has been more in a knowing, more in an idea that later I might express with words. But when I first felt it, when I first knew it, there were no words. I'm not saying this is how it will happen for you, because we are each unique beings. We all come from our own unique place, and we are born in this time, right now, for a unique reason. And yes, I do believe that we selected this time, this situation, for ourselves to be born, so that we may fulfill this reason. It just feels right to me. And I know the difference for myself when I follow that voice versus when I follow the cacophony of voices coming through my head. Will it always be pleasant? No, it will not. But we will have this feeling of fulfillment and of peace when we follow what is ours to do, as opposed to the feelings of fear, doubts, anger, cravings, addictive cravings that we bring on ourselves because we know we want something and we're not willing to admit what it is. And so we divert ourselves. Our ego personality takes hold and puts something in our grasp. But it is not what we are being called to do. And who's doing this calling? Let's remember that as we hear this word. This is the divine in us calling to ourself. There is no other involved. And indeed, there is no other anywhere. Because at the heart and truth of it all, God is the vine, and we are branches of the same vine. In the same way, self-existent consciousness, which we call God, is the ocean. And we are the waves on the ocean. We are not separate. We are expressions of the ocean in this moment, in this time. Time itself only has meaning because we are in these bodies. Our spirit is eternal. It is all time in one moment. And from this perspective, everything is okay. And from this perspective, I awake in the morning, filled with the zeal, with the energy to do everything that is mine to do. That is a paraphrase of Charles Fillmore's morning affirmation. I think a more direct quote would be, I fairly sizzle with zeal to do all that is mine to do today. And I like to open my day with gratitude and with this affirmation. And I don't feel so tired anymore. So I invite you, as you go through your day, you might ponder, why am I born into this moment? And what is mine to do? Ask for help from the divine in you and get a little quiet. Somewhere, sometime in your day. And it doesn't have to be a long time. And you don't even have to sit still. It can be in the midst of any of your activity. That is the beauty of prayer. When Paul directed us to pray without ceasing, he wasn't saying that we got to sit in prayer our entire life, but know that everything in our life is a prayer. Everything in our life can be a prayer if that is how we choose. I would like to thank you for spending this time with me, for giving this time to Spirit. And I'd like to close with the prayer for protection, as written by the Poet Laureate of Unity, James Dillett Freeman. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Thank you.